Back to another modern deck tech. This time I have RCQ winner Peter, also known cheater, known cheater Peter.
I did not cheat in this
He
RCQ.
did not. He did not. I was there. I watched him.
And he can verify that I missed Ocelot Pride triggers.
That is true. He did confirm to miss a bunch of Ocelot Pride triggers. So Peter, speaking of Ocelot Pride, tell me what I'm looking at here.
You were looking at Boros Energy. This deck took me to several top 8s this season and 1 win. It's really strong. This is the more optimized list for the resurgence of Titan.
Okay.
Which I do recommend that be aware of Titan. It's scary.
Yeah, I mean Titan can probably be one of like your scarier matchups. A deck that can just like combo off on turn 3 is pretty scary already enough as it is, but especially having nothing but like low to the ground, creatures is definitely not your strong suit against that deck. So the fact that you're optimizing a little bit slightly in that direction definitely makes sense. So,
yeah, I mean, listen, we were only running 2 copies of Blood Moon total. Now we're up to 4.
Yeah. Okay. That's all right. Now, all right. I'm starting to put the pieces together. Boros Energy, kind of the boogeyman of the format. I think I looked earlier this week. I think it's up to about a 20% meta share right now across maybe the last like 2 or 3 weeks worth of events. So, it's definitely one of the more popular lists that you're going to see. So let's start by how do you feel like you've performed on this list over the last couple of weeks, and take me through that RCQ day and tell me how you did that day.
Okay, so I think overall I have a very positive win record with the list. The list is very much my style of play, where you have like neat little tricks, like you can sack your 1/1s to Goblin Bombardment to flip a Johnny, all those neat little tricks. I do think the deck is not unbeatable. There's definitely ways you can win against it. As for that day, my round 1 was Affinity, which is an easy win for this deck.
Sure.
My round 2 was you, Groyos.
I was playing Goryo's Vengeance, and if I recall correctly, that was a very swift 2-0 victory for you, Peter. We don't have to necessarily go through all the grueling details of that one. But,
we won't.
So we'll move on. What was your next round after that?
My round 3 was the Mirror, which
okay.
The Mirror is pretty miserable. It's who can stick a Flage and keep the Flage, but also deal with your opponent's Flages.
So you have like the Static Prisons and what other answers to Flage specifically do you have?
Okay, so obviously the Static Prisons. I was running Change of the Rocks at the time, but okay. Static Prison gets rid of like Amulet of Vigor and stuff like that, so that's more important at the moment.
Sure.
Chain of the Rocks was really helpful. You got Containment Priest in the sideboard, Dranith Magistrate. If your Flage has haste, you can kill it just on attacking and entering. You got the Thraben Charms, which exile graveyards. There's all sorts of answers for the Flage in the Mirror. You just have to make sure that your Flage can stick.
Cool.
Or you have a faster start.
Yeah, something that I noticed that you did a bunch of that day was you did a lot of Goblin Bombardment shenanigans. You did a lot of I'm going to make a bunch of cats and then I'm going to start machine gunning my opponent down.
That felt great.
Yeah, I'm sure. Take me through so this was a smaller event, if I recall correctly. I think there was 13 participants total.
Correct.
So this one was only a cut to top 4. So take me through your top 4 performance. Talk me through those matchups.
All right. So my first matchup was Wizards, who the guy I did lose to in the Swiss. And he's a little bit full of himself. And I was very proud to give him the boots because that is not a good matchup for this deck. Sure. There's a lot of removal, a lot of counter spells. Also, invert polarity and a Flage never feels good.
No, I'm sure. And if I recall correctly, that invert polarity seemed almost unbeatable throughout the entire day, which was a little weird.
Yeah, but his invert polarity win percentage was like 9 and 10.
It was just crazy.
Yeah.
So talk me through how you did go about beating him.
So game 1, I was on the draw, which is a little worse in that matchup, but I did just overrun him with cats. Game 2, I did end up losing. I don't remember how. Game 3...
I think if I recall correctly, that was the invert polarity.
Oh, that might have been the invert polarity.
Yeah.
But game 3, I stuck a Sun Cleanser really early, so he couldn't remove with Galvanic Discharge, and he had 2 Galvanic Discharges in his hand.
Sure.
I also think he boarded out the Lightning Bolts, which isn't really a smart idea.
I don't necessarily think so. I think anything that's like, you have to think in the sense that you are going to try and want to 1-for-1 until you can get to a point where you can like Pyroclasm the board or do something like you just want to like hold the bleeding off until you can multi-target your opponent for a bunch of like either like 2-for-1 or 3-for-1 your opponent in some aspects there.
He
But yeah,
also got real greedy with his mana, and he only kept a 2-lander,
sure.
and he had to fetch for both of his surveil lands. And the one Blood Moon that I kept in, I flipped into, and then he suffered immensely because
Sure,
of that,
sure.
because he never had the blue source.
Yeah, cool. So that was round one of the top four.
Yes.
Take me through your next one.
Okay.
The next
So
one was
Goryo's Vengeance.
Goryo's. It was the finals, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So
So talk me through that.
that was an interesting game because game one, I just kind of steamrolled him, and I was on the draw again. Game two, we got a turn two Ulamog with 7+1/+1 counters on it. I was like, all right, well, I guess I just lose.
Sure.
But also in game one, he did have an Ulamog with 7+1/+1 counters, and I sacked all of my cats and flipped my Ajani and won the game because he couldn't recover after losing the Ulamog because he
That's
couldn't
right.
ephemerate it.
Sure. He just went all in on the Ulamog Annihilator thing and was hoping that you would sack the wrong things, and in order for you to.
I also took 14 to the face and went to 6
You
or
know what?
something.
Sometimes you can just do that.
And then game three, I mean, Darian also saw my hand too, and I just had everything I needed. I had a fetch land or surveil land or fetch land, one of the two. I had a turn 2 Sun Cleanser into like a turn 3 or 4 Blood Moon plus a Surgical Extraction plus a Containment Priest.
Mm-hmm.
He was never winning that game.
Gotcha. So take me through your sideboard a little bit. I see some stuff that makes a lot of sense. I'm seeing some interesting cards kind of coming back from days past. I'm seeing some Charmaws here. I see a one of Surgical Extraction. The Containment Priest is an interesting add-in.
Weird.
Yeah. Like you mentioned before, you're up 2 more Blood Moons in the side. Your Sun Cleanser, and you're still on Gigantha. I know a lot of lists are kind of flip-flopping between whether or not they do or don't want to run the Gigantha. I think the Gigantha is still. I think it's a fine sideboard card, especially since pay 3, buy it into your hand, and sometimes you just need a hasty 5/5 to push through some damage. So I'm
it
not.
does
too
win
opposed.
games. It usually wins games in the mirror, which is really interesting.
So how did you sideboard against your 2 Goryo's opponents that day?
Okay, well, my sideboard is a little bit different, but I believe all the cards are the same. I was up 1 Surgical Extraction, so I boarded in 2 Containment Priests. I was not running Dranith Magistrate. The 2 Sun Cleansers came in.
Sure.
But I think it was also on 3 Sun Cleansers at that time.
Okay.
So all 3 of them came in.
Gotcha.
And like you don't need the One Rings in that matchup because they're either going to kill you or they're not. So you just got to get there. So you board out your One Rings. These were Chained to the Rocks. You'd board those out too because you don't need them. I don't remember what the last card I boarded. Maybe it was the second Goblin Bombardment because I was running 2 at the time. But game 1 is almost like a 70% win rate against that deck.
Mm-hmm.
Game 2 is when it gets a little weird because they board in like Wrath of Skies and stuff to remove your stuff.
Toxic Deluges, Wrath of Skies. Yeah. I'm seeing some lists running Temporary Lockdown.
Yep.
That's another big one that I'm starting to see too as well. So they definitely have like some like board wipe effects. I saw some lists running Supreme Verdict. So they definitely have like more tools coming in against you again in game 2. So that definitely does make a lot of sense.
So game 2 kind of pushes you down to like a 50% win rate.
Okay.
And game 3 is kind of the same way if you get to game 3. I'm at the point now where this is almost coming out because like I have to be aware of Eldrazi matchups with Obsidian Charmaw.
Sure.
Seeing
some Sunspire or Sunspine links.
I've seen that
too as well. So definitely some interesting like double pipped cards in the sideboard now. So Giganthus may or may not see like less play over the next coming weeks. But yeah, so over the last couple weeks, I know you haven't been around at FNM. However, if you were to make this is the current list that you're going to be running tonight. So. Yes. This is all based off of your RCQ performance and against certain matchups. Were there any other changes that you'd like to make, or any other changes that you want to maybe try and tinker with a little bit, or is this kind of what you're stuck on now?
I think I'm kind of set on this. Actually, a person who helped a lot was Young Dingo.
Sure.
Like his guide is outstanding.
Shout out Young Dingo.
He that really helped a lot. That's why I've been performing extremely well this season.
Sure.
Um, you just also never be afraid to keep a 2-land hand. Like you can just get away with it.
I ain't afraid of it. All
Um,
right, Pete. Well, that's that'll do it for this modern deck tech. Pete, thanks and congrats again on your RCQ win. We'll definitely be rooting for you down in Charlotte. Uh, that'll be it for this one. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. We'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.